Fellow Agilists, welcome to the final episode in Season 3 of the Virtually Agile podcast. We've had some great guests so far in this season, including Richard Kasparowski, Becca Francis, Johanna Rothman, and Jeff Watts. Today's guest is the founder of Dandy People, an executive and enterprise agile coach, a chief enabling officer, a title that I love, by the way. I'm very pleased to welcome Mia Kolmodin to the show. So Mia, for anyone who isn't familiar with you and your work, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, sure. I started Dandy People 5 years ago, and I have a background from agile coaching, but before that, product development. I worked as a chief product owner, and before that, graphic designer, art director, and illustrator. So that's the actual training I have are within those areas, and that's a very long time ago. And I live with my husband and my daughter, which is now 19, moving out soon, and two other children as well also moved out. So we have a dog and a cat.
Oh, wonderful. Now, you mentioned, I guess, your agile coaching and your use of visualizations. And when I first came across Dandy People, it was because of those great posters, those visualizations that help introduce people to agility and agile concepts. So,
Yeah.
Mia, what inspired those visualizations?
Well, as I said, that's my background. So that's how I think, that's how I understand things, and that's also a lot how I communicate. And the first one, Agile in a nutshell, I created when I was about to train a class of a school here at Hyper Island in Sweden. We had a half day agility training, and I thought, how are they going to remember any of these? We did experience based exercises and stuff like that. So then I created a one pager to help them just keep a visualization of the actual theory and the content we were covering. So that was the first thing I did, and then I posted it on the blog, and just I don't know, a few weeks later, it just skyrocketed on LinkedIn. I thought LinkedIn had crashed or something. So after that, that's how I've continued to kind of get more specific topics into a one pager, depending on what I have needed and people around me working with me.
Excellent, and I think that's what particularly resonated with me. I love the way it's visualized. It's infographic esque. It explains things in very simple terms. So, have you got a favorite of those posters? I know you mentioned the first was Agile in a nutshell. Is there a particular one that you loved most?
So maybe that's the one I don't love the most, because one of the ideas I had was, if I do this, I don't have to cover it again. And it's been just coming over and over again, and then I have to do these trainings and use them a lot. Uh, but maybe I would say maybe Agile HR I do like a lot, and the product ownership version, which is about the process, not the role, and also maybe the customer journey version, where it helps to understand how you can align your organization around the customer journey, which is close to my heart. So yeah, a couple of those. Mm.
Sounds good. May I share my favorite? Yeah, well, so
Mm.
mine is the agile leadership one, and my favorite part of that
Ah.
is where it shows the traditional hierarchy, the traditional management style, where you've got direction and how to do things and what you're doing and how you're doing it flowing downwards. But then there is the reversed pyramids where it flips that around and says, right, here's the outcome we're seeking, here's the strategy we're going after, and then it positions the people doing the work as this is how we do it, and all you're doing is enabling that flow of information downwards. Here is the strategy and vision. And then back upwards comes, here's the progress, here's the transparency, here's the things we're stuck with. Help us out, please. And I love the way
Mm.
that's visualized. It's what I use all the time to explain
Yeah.
to particularly leadership roles. This is how we need to position yourselves as this is how you need to support your team.
Mm. Mm.
Definitely my
And
favorite.
I just love hearing stories about how people use them and how it's helped them, changing the mindset and the behaviors. So thank you for that.
No problem. So what's next? Is there a topic that we're going to expect a new dandy poster on next?
Oh, it is, and it's also super exciting to me because I've showed my fellow dandies how I do them, and I've shared with them just a template in Illustrator that I use. So now we have one of the dandies who's going to actually release one very soon, where I've been coaching a little bit. I've been helping a little bit with the graphic design eye and some other things, but otherwise everything else is his work. So I'm super excited about that. I'm not sure I'm going to tell you what it is. It might come before summer, it might come after summer, but it has something to do with architecture, I could say.
Okay, so there's a new one coming for people to look
Mm.
out for. Excellent. Look out for that,
Mhm.
folks.
Mm.
All right, another topic I'm really keen to speak with you about, because we have again a similar ethos about this, is gamification and using serious play to teach concepts. So I know you
Mm.
and your dandies, your dandy people, you have things like board games in a box. Tell us a little bit more about that. Why do you use these, and what benefits do you believe they bring to those you're working with?
Oh, playing is a great way to understand things
Mm,
and to do things. I mean, it's really serious playing these games. That's why it's called serious games. But you can discover new things and you can learn a lot. And you use scenario based learning and a lot of good things happening when you do this. And the reason why we create them is because we need to help people to understand maybe something complex, some new topic, or something around themselves, or their way of working, their thinking. So we love coming up with these concepts and try them out ourselves, and then help our customers to use them, and then share them, usually with everyone. And they could come in a digital format, just a paper printout. A lot of times we first start with something super simple, like just a printout paper, like we did with maybe what you're referring to, the Agile Ways of Working game,
mhm,
which started as a just a paper that you could print out, and we created it in different formats for different types of organizations. So one of them was actually a nursing organization. So we helped them to understand how to work with Scrum together, nursing teams. And then we, of course, changed the content of it and published it online for anyone to use. And then we created a digital version where you play a board game online in a digital just setup where you can try different board games, which was just amazing. So we've been doing that and using that online, and also share that with everyone during the pandemic. And then now we're creating an in-box version, which is just
mm,
a real board game. Then it feels like it, at least. I mean, a board game is a different thing. This is a serious board game.
mm.
Mm,
Amazing. Well, I love how you're using games, something that people enjoy, a bit of fun to teach concepts. And I love how
mm,
you're contextualizing it for the environment as well. So it's not just a one size fits all approach. It's customized to this industry, nursing teams or otherwise. I think one of my favorite
mm,
quotes when it comes to games, I use it all the time. It's tell me and I'll forget, teach me and I'll remember, engage me and I'll learn. And this is why I love
mm,
using games myself to engage people to teach concepts, whether that's me creating an agile escape room to introduce agility and they've got to escape the room within an hour, but learn about agile along the way, or whether it's
yeah.
using agile games like outcomes versus outputs or battleships or whatever it may be, just to teach a concept. I find if people are enjoying themselves and they're engaged in the process, they're more likely to learn, as
Mm,
opposed to, I guess, some of the traditional learning styles or teaching styles, which is, as you know, quite slide heavy or PowerPoint heavy, or here's your content you're being presented
mm.
at. Doing it through game,
Telling.
yes, telling,
Yeah.
but involving people and making it interactive, I tend to find it
Mm.
resonates, it sticks a little bit more.
Yeah, it also stays within, kind of the body, the
Mm,
experience that you get from actually playing and doing something, and you can learn so much faster. So yeah, it's really fun to do them and create them and also run them.
mm. I mean, tell us more. Do you have any stories that you could share about the use of, I guess, these serious games, and maybe some of the light bulb moments that it's resulted in, or has it resulted in great outcomes for those you work with?
I would say in the nursing organization, I thought that was one of the most amazing things, that we played
Mm,
this way of working game with them for around 30 minutes. And then we had, a wrap up and, what does this mean for us? And then we started to coach them in smaller teams to use this. And they just instantly got it. And they put the actual game on the wall. That was their template for their Scrum board.
mm,
And then they could actually remember what to do continuously based on what they did in the game, which is just, kind of a 1 hour training. And
mm,
then you have three new nursing teams using Scrum. And that created a lot of benefits with them actually starting to work as teams. taking
Mhm.
care of things together, delivering value continuously, just changing not their actual operations, but their actual organization around it. So constantly increasing the value in the organization, which usually used to come like every 6 months from the head
Mhm.
office. Now you failed on these things. Uh, this is what you need to do about it. Now they constantly adapted the organization and how they deliver value for their customers, which was just something totally different. And also all the personal conflicts that they had in between the different people that was not working as teams before also disappeared. So just seeing those things, what happens when you come together as a team, when you actually take responsibility and you feel this proudness as an individual doing a great work and as a team, I think that's just amazing. And having it, yeah, having it, having it happen in such a that type of organization is just amazing.
I was just going to reflect on that. Thank you for sharing that story. It's a great example of how agile principles, values, mindsets, things like Scrum can be very applicable
Mm,
in what you would consider a very non-traditional agile environment. I wouldn't have thought of using Scrum, for example, in a nursing team. But absolutely, if you come back to the principles and values that agile help bring about, building in
mm,
fast feedback loops, everyone aligned around what your goal and priority is, the ability to pivot on a daily basis, shortening those feedback loops so you're learning and altering your trajectory based on what you learn. It can absolutely, for me,
mm,
can apply in any environment. It doesn't matter if it's software or otherwise, they are still relevant.
yeah,
And I think it's a great story there that
yeah.
you've shared where it can be in a very non-traditional environment. So thanks for sharing that story. So there's another game that I was very keen to speak with you about. And hands over your ears, folks, it's called the Biggest Fuck Ups game. And what I love about this is that it's, for anyone's awareness, the next season of this podcast, season 4, is all about destigmatizing failure. And this is like a beautiful segue into season 4 because that is what that game is all about, right? It's about destigmatizing failure. It's okay to fail. Failure is a learning opportunity,
Yeah,
not a negative thing. So, Mia, tell me more about this
exactly.
game.
Oh, yeah, it's one of the new ones that we have, the newest, I would say. And we were creating a training for leaders in how to create high performing teams and high performing organizations that support high performing teams in an organization where we had 60 leaders. So we're going to do like 3 cohorts of trainings, and then we needed to create materials for them, and we wanted to work with such psychological safety, of course, but
Mhm.
we didn't really have any material that we felt was experience based and fun enough. So that's where when we came up with the idea for this great game. And I just read this article that was hilarious, which had the same title. So I was like, this is such a great inspiration. We need to do something about it. So the next
Mhm.
day we just started to sketch. And then, yeah, what are the things we want to have in this? I saw this wheel, how it's going to look in my head. So we just started to draw it and then, fill out what are the content that we want to have. So I think it took like half a day, maybe maximum 4 hours to create it. And then we tested it ourselves on the Danny conference we had just a couple of weeks after. And it's like, it really made us talk. It made
Mhm.
us share stories, which is, I mean, that's what it's all about, to share, the learnings, the stories, the failures that we have as individuals with each other. And then a couple of weeks after, a month after, or something like that, before we did the actual training, we also had a meetup, and then the people where people came physically to try it. And it was also like this amazing experience because people that did this, they didn't know each other. They were sitting in groups, of course, playing 4 and 4 around the table, and you take turns to share your stories depending on which topic you're interested in. So it's divided in, I think it's maybe 8 or 9 topics or something like that, which are all connected to science and research. So there's lots of research around each topic, how they actually impact psychological safety. Um, and once they had done this and shared their stories within their small groups, when they were going away, they were hugging each other, they were hugging us. It's like, I've never felt this good about sharing about my failures. I had no idea everyone else had done pretty much the same thing. So they created a super safe environment and space within that group and felt that, oh, this really helped me grow and feel safe. And that for
Mhm.
me, that's what it's all about. And as leaders, of course, we need to do that with the people we work with, but also with the people in the organization. So we've developed it based on the need that we saw, and then tried it out ourselves and felt, okay, this is actually working. And we also wanted, kind of the fun name, like you say.
Yeah.
Do we really dare to do this? And of course, yes, we did.
You dared, and it sounds like it's paid off. I'd love to see how that game works sometime. I might have to get a meetup running and ask you to come along, Dandy people, to come and share the game. It reminds me of
Yeah.
there's a team of people, Cozy Juicy Real, Jed and Sophia, who created a very similar. It's not necessarily focused on fuck ups, but it's about sharing vulnerable stories with one another
Mm.
and the team building that can cause. As you said, like people are almost cathartically energized afterwards because they've shared things that haven't gone quite well, and that recognize that that's okay. So here's a
Mm.
question to you then: in the interest of kind of environmental psychological safety, in the interest of being a leader and being vulnerable as a leader, given that season 4 of the show is about failure, and I know this is season 3, that's okay. Do you have an example or a story of your own failure that you wouldn't mind sharing with the community and what you've learned from it?
Oh, yeah. I actually have been working on a blog post on Dandy people turning 5, and I wrote about a couple of mistakes and failures that I did, I would say, starting Dandy. And one of the things was creating a salary model which was individual, which goes against everything I know. But I felt, oh, this is what's going to be needed. Otherwise, people would not, want to join Dandy, because I thought that everyone else had a lot of need for safety, which I
Mm,
don't. So I tried to create something based on what I believe that everyone else were interested in, which just showed really quickly that the individual salary model did not help people to collaborate, did not help people to solve, you know, customer problems in the best way, innovate together, none of the things that I were interested in. So we failed quite quickly, and after around a year, I would say, we had to change the salary model to a team-based model. So
okay.
that's what we have now. So that helps people to collaborate and not care about who's getting paid the most, because we all get an equal salary always, depending on the invoicing we do. But I felt that that was a big failure. Maybe not. I mean, it wasn't really a failure in that sense, maybe, but it was going against my principles, my values, what I believe in. I still did it because I thought that would be the only way to attract people. And actually, people left Dandy when I changed the model. So it was a pretty big fuck up, I would say, especially for someone like me. Mm.
Mm. Well, I think one of the things I've increasingly learned over the years is that it's never a one size fits all situation, and you can't possibly create something that makes everyone perfectly happy because we are individuals with unique desires and interests and ways of wanting things and doing things, and we have different environments and constraints we're living with and otherwise. So you can't always just standardize and make everyone happy. But you've shared a failure, and thank you for that. I will share one of mine. It's only fair. So once upon a time, I used to
Mm.
describe myself as an agile evangelist. I actually wrote a blog post about this recently. And I would go into a new client situation and I would think, oh, I've seen this work before. This is going to work for you as well. And what I wasn't doing was taking into account the people, the context, the situation, the culture there. And I was just saying, I've seen something work. It will work for you too, regardless of the situation. So I would go in with a solution in mind rather than tailoring the approach based on what I learned about their specific situation. Nowadays, I would describe myself more as an agile pragmatist. So not a solutionist, not an evangelist. Agile may very much help many companies get where they need to be, but honestly, agile isn't the journey, it's not the outcome. It's that, there are results that people are looking for, that companies are seeking, outcomes they're moving towards. Agile will absolutely help them get there because it builds in the feedback loops and the mindset and behaviors, but it isn't a one size fits all situation. And actually, sometimes waterfall may very fit in a
Mm.
specific situation, and that's okay. It's not an us versus them sort of approach. So that's one of my failings.
Mm. Thank you. And I think that's a failure that many people can relate to.
Mm,
Being early on in the journey, you want to be, you want to be the good guy and give solutions.
yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. So another thing I was keen to speak with you about, I guess Dandy have recently shared, I think it was one of your Dandy people, has shared a new model for what you've described as leveraging the brain power of an organization or a collective group. I believe it's called the grow/plow model. Tell me more about the model,
Hmm.
please.
Oh, and that's actually a model that came from Carrie Kelly, which is a dandy. So
Mhm.
I haven't created it. I haven't worked with it. I know just as much as you do reading the blog post. She's a super smart woman. she's she's very skilled in so many things that I'm not. So I think you should have invited her if you want to talk more about it,
There
because
we
I
go.
don't really know much more than actually
That's
what's in the
okay.
post.
Well, that
Mm.
segues nicely into one of the other questions, which is around given the theme of this podcast is about amplifying newer voices. So, who do you think is doing some great work out there that I should ask to be on the show? Whose voice should be heard? It sounds like Kerry as an example, but is there anyone else I
Carrie,
should
yeah.
reach out to have as a guest on the show?
Oh, that's a difficult one. Um, I just met with Simon Powers. He was here in Stockholm running his one of his trainings, and we had really nice conversations about starting and running agile organizations, which was so interesting to me. So if you haven't met with him, he might be a good candidate.
So Simon has actually trained me twice now in IC Agile. I was on his Enterprise
Yeah.
Agile coaching boot camp a few months ago,
Mm.
and I've also had him on the guest as a guest on the show already. We talked about enterprise agility as he's a bit of at the forefront
Mm.
of that. So definitely already had Simon on the
Mm.
show. Great guest. It was great speaking to him about his learnings there. Wonderful. What else would you like to talk about? Any particular hot topics for you right now? Open forum, world's your oyster.
Oh, hot topics for me. I don't know. I'm a bit interested in what you're doing, Chris, because I know you're super good at retrospectives and
Mhm.
finding different ways to find angles to maybe make them more interesting. So, how many of those have you made, and what have you learned?
I think I've lost count now. The number of retrospectives is probably well. I guess it began as retrospectives, but I'm increasingly looking at it being templates or experiences. So I'm thinking of less of just
Mm,
a retro and more of a how can I make an engaging, interactive, immersive experience for those involved. I think in total the templates must be in the 70 to 80 range, and that's
mm,
across canvases for transformations or goals or agile games or retrospectives. But it very much just began years and years ago when I was acting as a scrum master and I was thinking, right, I've got to do another retrospective. How can I make sure this is going to be the best session yet? And I just remember that the options out there were very limited. It was, the traditional start, stop, continue. There might have been a sailboat or a air balloon. And I once saw the Elvis retrospective and I thought, oh, that's great. That's interesting. And that inspired me because that was the king of retrospectives to create the queen of retrospectives. So Queen, the rock band. And I
mm,
began creating retros from there. And a bit like you, I began sharing them on LinkedIn and they just exploded. And I thought, well, clearly there's demand for this. Clearly people like this. I'm going to do more of it. So it's now become a
mm,
bit of a thing. I use my creative energies to create new experiences, whether that's a retrospective, a template, or even a town hall to hundreds of people with a snow day theme, where I'm actually wearing a full on skiing gear, including the helmet and goggles, while I'm presenting this town hall, just to make it a bit more interesting. So I guess that's
that's so
the
much
genesis
fun.
of it for me, yeah. Because I do
Yeah,
firmly believe that
uh,
work can be fun with a little bit of creativity. And I've been doing
it
a
should
number
be.
of
It should
yeah,
be.
shouldn't it be? I know it's one of the almost one of the values that the Dandy people has is about being fun and engaging in the workplace. So we definitely resonate there. Yeah, I've been giving a few talks on how to create engaging retrospectives, so kind of sharing my learnings. And there's lots there. And there's also a talk I give, which is called 50 Shades of Retrospective, which will also be the topic of a book I'm writing. And that's all my top
Mm,
tips and strategies for continuous improvement, not just retrospective, but continuous improvement. And there are all sorts in there
well,
from creating the environment for continuous improvement all the way to how to facilitate a retrospective or a meeting that you're looking to continuously improve to formats. So I've got loads of formats, lots of templates out there, and how to finish up, how to actually turn that conversation, those insights you're gathering into actionable things that the team can do differently that
mm,
result in improvement. And I've been
mm,
saying for a little while now that the key to agility for me is continuous improvement, and the key to continuous improvement is retrospection. If you're not pausing as a
yeah.
team or organization to reflect on how things are going and how they could be better, then you're not going to be continuously improving. Odds are you're going to be frustrated with the same things happening over and over.
Mm. And that's always key. If you want to become agile in some way or have the agility, you should really start with improvement.
Mm.
Mm.
And another thing I've got on one of my tips for, I guess, retrospection and continuous improvement is that as an agile coach, you shouldn't just be encouraging others to continuously improve. You've also got to turn that mirror inwardsly and do that yourself. So I practice what I
Yeah.
call solo spection. It's like a retrospective for one, where on a weekly basis, I'm noting down what went well this week, what value did I bring, what could I do better next week, what one improvement could I bring about for the teams or organizations that I work with. I think it's quite powerful to do that exercise yourself. We've got to practice what we preach as well.
Yeah.
If we're asking teams to reflect, we should also be doing so ourselves.
Mm. And as an individual, what can I work on myself? Maybe change, listen more, or act in a different way. And there's so many things we can do with just thinking about what we can improve.
Couldn't agree
Mm.
more.
Thank you.
Couldn't agree more. Right, so Mia, it's time to add something new to my backlog. You mentioned how I've got all these templates I've been creating. I ask every guest on the show to add something brand new to my backlog. And again, the world is your oyster here. Think of anything. It doesn't have to be a retrospective. You could challenge me to try and bring a bit of fun to another traditional agile ceremony, but just add something new, and I'll come up with something and see what I can create.
Add something new. Oh, I don't know. We talked about leadership, which
Okay.
was one of your favorite posters. Could you do something there? We also work with creating cross-functional leadership teams. Could there
Mhm.
be anything specific that they would be interested in?
Okay.
Um,
So
I
we're
don't
talking
know.
a retrospective designed perhaps towards leadership.
Yeah, I mean, if they would feel that it appeals to them, it makes them better. I
Mhm.
think then the whole organization would benefit a lot.
I
Hmm,
agree. All right, I
something
will add
around that.
that. I will add that to the backlog. That's going on there, alongside a number of the others that I've got to get round to. I've still got Martin Dalmeen. He's appearing on the show next week. I've still got to do a Gremlins theme retrospective for him, although that
Huh?
feels more Christmas appropriate. I've got to do a Peru themed retrospective for another guest. I've got the International Bat Appreciation Day from Tobias Mayer. I think Lisa Atkins, I've still got to do her gardening theme retrospective. So there's a number of things on there. Backlog's growing. I've
Yeah.
got to manage my own work in progress a little bit. A little bit.
Oh, you do. And I actually do have a question for you, Chris.
Yeah, go for
If
it.
you could ask anything, what would you like us dandies to bring to you?
Oh, now there's a question. There is a question. So I love the visuals. I'm trying to think of a topic that I think could do with a really good visual around. So one that I've seen some other examples of posters about is specifically breaking work down into smaller pieces, chunks and otherwise.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
in a really simple way, a poster that would articulate the techniques, approaches, what people are looking for to take large bits of work and turn them into smaller, navigatable chunks that add value incrementally. If there was a nice, simple visual that showed that, I think that would add a lot of value to people.
Good
There you
one.
go.
Yeah,
We've
that's
done a
very
we've done a trade now.
yeah, good. We have. It's
Excellent.
a win-win too.
It's a
Mm.
win-win. Brilliant. So, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners, Mia, about yourself, about Dandy or otherwise?
Oh, I don't know, but reach out if there's anything we can do for you. Please do.
Wonderful. So we're always looking for any guests, any new guests to appear on the show. So do reach out if you'd like to be involved. We have a growing Slack community of practice. So grab the invite link from www.thevirtualagilecoach.co.uk if you'd like to be involved. And otherwise, as always, folks, don't stop believing.